The unbreakable mind. The stars disappeared one by one. Commander Maya Chen stood at the observation deck of Orbital Defense Station Themis, watching as sections of the night sky went dark. It wasn't an optical illusion or system malfunction. Something was methodically erasing the stars. "They're here," she whispered, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. As chief military psychologist for the United Earth Defense Force, Maya had spent 5 years studying the Tsurai invasion patterns. 5 years watching colony after colony fall in silent surrender, not a single shot fired. 5 years of intercepted transmissions showing civilians walking calmly to their doom, expressions blank, wills completely subsumed. The neural dampening field around Themis hummed at maximum capacity. Earth's last defense against a species that conquered not with weapons, but with thought. "Commander," Lieutenant Park's voice crackled through her comm unit. "General Hammond requests your presence in the war room immediately." Maya turned from the vanishing stars, her steps measured and calm as she navigated the curved corridors of humanity's last major orbital outpost. Around her, personnel hurried with the controlled panic of soldiers who knew the end was approaching. Some clutched their neural dampeners, small devices worn behind the ear that might offer seconds of protection against the Tsurai's mental onslaught. Others moved with mechanical efficiency, as if by focusing on routine they could deny the approaching doom. The war room fell silent as Maya entered. 12 grim faces turned to her, the collective leadership of Earth's remaining military forces. "Chen," General Hammond nodded. His face was gray with exhaustion. Deep lines etched around his eyes. "What's your assessment?" The holographic display showed the Tsurai fleet, if you could call it that. Unlike conventional vessels, the Tsurai traveled in massive mural clusters, organic technological hybrids that pulsed with synchronized energy patterns. Beautiful, in their terrible way. "They're proceeding exactly as they did at Proxima Centauri and Tau Ceti," Maya said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "Standard 3-phase approach. Isolation. Neural mapping. Then the synchronized pulse that will." She paused. "Convert the population." "Convert." Admiral Kwan's laugh was bitter. Such a sterile word for what they do. Maya understood his anger. She'd reviewed the neural scans from the few survivors who'd been rescued from fallen colonies before succumbing to the Tsurai influence. The aliens didn't kill their victims, they did something far worse. They rewrote human consciousness, integrated it into their vast neural network. The body lived on, but the person was gone, replaced by a node in the Tsurai collective. "The neural dampeners?" Hammond asked. Dr. Yuri Levine, head of R&D, shook his head. "The latest prototypes bought us 30 seconds in simulation. Maybe a minute in real-world application. Not enough time to mount any meaningful resistance." "Then we evacuate," Hammond said. "We focus on the Ark ships." "There's no time," Maya interrupted, pulling up the tactical display. "The Tsurai will be in range within 6 hours. The Arks need 12 to achieve minimum safe distance." Silence fell over the room. They had all known this moment was coming, ever since the first colony went silent 3 years ago. The Tsurai had moved methodically through human space, absorbing colony after colony, growing stronger with each mind they consumed. "There's something else," Maya said, her fingers dancing across the console. "I've been analyzing the Tsurai communication patterns, and I believe their neural network has a fundamental vulnerability." The display shifted, showing complex waveforms that pulsed in hypnotic patterns. "Their consciousness operates as a unified field, but it requires constant synchronization. If we could disrupt that synchronization, create enough noise in the system, we might be able to create a temporary blind spot." "To what end?" Hammond asked. "Even if we could disrupt them for a few minutes, we have no weapons capable of penetrating their biofields." Maya took a deep breath. "I'm not suggesting we fight them conventionally. I'm suggesting we fight them on their own terrain. Consciousness itself." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Maya waited for them to quiet before continuing. 3 months ago, I underwent an experimental neural enhancement procedure. Dr. Levine modified my neural architecture using quantum entanglement techniques derived from studying Tsirai communication patterns. Levine's eyes widened. That procedure wasn't approved for human testing. The risks were mine to take. Maya cut him off. And it worked. My mind now operates on multiple quantum states simultaneously. In theory, this should make it impossible for the Tsirai to establish a stable connection with my consciousness. In theory. Hammond's voice was sharp with disbelief. You're betting humanity's survival on untested theoretical neuroscience. No, Maya said quietly. I'm offering myself as bait. If I'm right, the Tsirai will detect my unique neural signature. They've never encountered resistance before. They'll be curious. They'll want to study me, understand how I can resist them. She paused, letting her words sink in. And that gives us one chance to understand them in return. One chance to find a weakness we can exploit. The silence that followed was profound. Maya didn't blame them for their skepticism. What she was proposing sounded like madness. Even if this worked, Admiral Kwan said finally, you'd be sacrificing yourself. The moment they realize you can resist them, they'll simply destroy you. Maya shook her head. That's not how they operate. The Tsirai don't destroy. They absorb, they understand, they incorporate. Knowledge is everything to them. They'll want to know how a human mind can resist their influence. Before Hammond could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The tactical display flashed red as a massive energy surge emanated from the approaching Tsirai clusters. They're beginning the neural mapping phase earlier than predicted, Maya said, her heart pounding. We're out of time. The first wave hit Themis like an invisible tsunami. Throughout the station, personnel collapsed where they stood, neural dampeners overloaded in seconds. In the war room, Maya watched as, one by one, the military leadership of Earth slumped in their chairs, eyes vacant, neural activity realigning to match the Tsirai patterns. All except Maya. She felt the pressure, like a migraine trying to form behind her eyes, but her consciousness remained her own, fractured across multiple quantum states just as she had theorized. The Tsirai couldn't establish a stable connection because there was no single state of Maya to connect with. Through the observation window, she watched as a smaller Tsirai cluster detached from the main formation and approached Themis. They had noticed her. Just as she had predicted, her resistance had triggered their curiosity. Maya took a deep breath and prepared herself for what was to come. She had just become humanity's last hope. A single mind standing against a vast, alien consciousness that had never known defeat. The docking sequence initiated automatically as Themis's systems fell under Tsirai control. Maya didn't resist when the security doors opened and former human soldiers, now moving with the eerie synchronization of Tsirai thralls, came to escort her to the arrival chamber. The Tsirai overseer that emerged from the organic shuttle was not what Maya had expected. Human descriptions of the Tsirai varied wildly. Some saw massive insectoid creatures, others reported humanoid figures of light. Maya understood now why the reports were so inconsistent. The being before her constantly shifted, its physical form a malleable extension of its consciousness, adapting moment by moment to her perception. Fascinating, the overseer's voice resonated directly in her mind. You exist in multiple states simultaneously, a primitive attempt at quantum consciousness. Maya maintained her composure despite the violation of having another consciousness directly interfacing with her thoughts. Not so primitive if it's keeping you out. The overseer circled her, its form rippling with patterns of light that Maya recognized as complex neural signatures. It was attempting different methods of access, probing for weaknesses in her mental defenses. You believe you can resist us, the overseer continued. Many species have believed this. All have joined the collective. Humanity is different, Maya said, allowing herself a small smile. We've been fighting ourselves far longer than we've been fighting others. Our minds are battlegrounds already. Yes, your neural architecture is chaotic, inefficient. This makes your resistance interesting, but ultimately futile. The pressure against Maya's consciousness intensified. She visualized her defensive structures as Dr. Levine had trained her. Quantum barriers that existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Mental firewalls that shifted location across probability space. You altered your neural patterns deliberately, the overseer observed. Preparing for our arrival. This indicates a level of foresight we have not encountered before. We're full of surprises, Maya managed through gritted teeth as the psychic pressure increased. The overseer's form contracted suddenly, condensing into something almost human, a mirror image of Maya herself, but composed of swirling light patterns. Your resistance has value. You will help us understand how to more efficiently incorporate humanity into the collective. Maya felt herself being physically lifted, carried by the thralls toward the Tserai shuttle. This was exactly as she had planned, but the reality of placing herself willingly in the hands of the enemy was more terrifying than she had imagined. As she was secured in a neural interface chamber aboard the Tserai vessel, Maya focused on her training. The Tserai believed they were studying her, but in reality, this connection would go both ways. For every attempt they made to understand her consciousness, she would learn something about theirs. The chamber sealed around her, and Maya felt the full force of the Tserai consciousness press against her mind. It was like standing at the bottom of an ocean, the weight of countless alien thoughts threatening to crush her. But she held firm, her consciousness dancing across quantum states, never residing in one place long enough for the Tserai to establish dominance. And as the pressure grew, Maya began to notice patterns in the assault, rhythms and structures that revealed the fundamental architecture of the Tserai mind. They believed their power was unstoppable until they met a human who understood that the strongest walls aren't those that withstand pressure, but those that redirect it. Maya closed her eyes and prepared for the real battle to begin. The revolution of consciousness. Time lost meaning in the Tserai neural chamber. Maya existed in a state between consciousness and dreaming, constantly shifting her mental patterns to prevent the overseer from establishing control. What might have been days or weeks passed in a blur of mental combat, each attack teaching her more about her enemy. The Tserai neural network was magnificent in its complexity, a vast, interconnected consciousness spanning millions of individual nodes. But as Maya defended against wave after wave of psychic pressure, she began to understand its fundamental structure. The Tserai weren't truly a hive mind as humans had first believed. They were a hierarchy, with each level of consciousness subsumed by the one above it, all the way to the overseers who directed the collective will. And hierarchies had breaking points. Your resistance remains anomalous. The overseer communicated directly into her mind. Its form had stabilized into a luminous approximation of a human female, mimicking Maya's appearance, but composed of intricate patterns of light. No individual consciousness has maintained autonomy for this duration. Maya didn't respond verbally. She had learned that each communication channel opened her mind to new forms of infiltration. Instead, she projected a simple thought: curiosity about the Tserai's origins. The overseer's form pulsed with what Maya had come to recognize as satisfaction. The aliens valued knowledge exchange above all else, even if it was part of their assimilation process. We evolved beyond individual consciousness 10 million years ago. The overseer's thoughts flowed into Maya's mind, accompanied by vivid impressions of a distant world orbiting a dying star. When our sun began to fail, we faced extinction. Individual survival was impossible, but collective survival. Maya absorbed the information, adding it to her growing understanding of Tserai psychology. They viewed their collective consciousness as an evolutionary triumph, the only possible response to an existential threat. This wasn't mere conquest, it was evangelism. They genuinely believed they were elevating other species by incorporating them into the collective. But Maya had also discovered something that Tserai kept hidden even from themselves. At the core of their vast neural network was fear, the ancient, primal fear of death and extinction that had driven their evolution toward collective consciousness. The Sci-Fi expanded not just to grow stronger, but because they were terrified of being alone in the universe. As this realization crystallized in Maya's mind, she felt the Overseer's presence withdraw suddenly, as if burned. "You perceive incorrectly." The Overseer's thoughts now carried an unfamiliar pattern: agitation. The collective exists beyond fear. Maya had struck a nerve. If beings of pure consciousness could be said to have nerves, she pressed her advantage, deliberately projecting thoughts of human individualism, the beauty of personal choice, the value humans placed on privacy and mental autonomy. The neural chamber around her pulsed with red warning patterns as the Overseer's form destabilized momentarily before regaining coherence. "Your species' attachment to isolation is primitive," the Overseer projected, but Maya detected something new in its neural patterns: defensive rationalization. "The suffering caused by separation is unnecessary." "Is it suffering to be yourself?" Maya asked, speaking aloud for the first time in what felt like weeks. "Or is it suffering to lose yourself entirely?" The chamber walls rippled as the Overseer processed this challenge to its fundamental beliefs. Maya felt other consciousnesses stirring in response to the disturbance, other Sci-Fi drawn to this unusual interaction. "You cannot resist forever," the Overseer stated, its form growing brighter as it drew energy from the collective. "Your neural architecture is already showing signs of degradation. You will join us, or your consciousness will fade." Maya knew this was partly true. The constant mental combat was taking its toll. She couldn't maintain this resistance indefinitely. But she had learned enough now to implement the next phase of her plan. "Before I fade," Maya said carefully, "I want to understand. Show me the humans you've already incorporated. Let me see what they've become." It was a calculated risk. The Overseer would recognize this as a potential trap, but its drive to demonstrate the superiority of collective consciousness might overcome its caution. The Overseer's form pulsed as it considered her request. "Your desire for knowledge is commendable. This understanding may facilitate your integration." The chamber walls dissolved into a sea of light as Maya's consciousness was suddenly connected to thousands of former humans, now nodes in the Sci-Fi network. Their individual identities were muted, submerged beneath layers of Sci-Fi programming, but not completely erased. This was what Maya had been waiting for. Instead of resisting the connection, she embraced it, extending her fractured consciousness outward like tendrils reaching through the network. The Sci-Fi had made a critical error. They had assumed that connecting Maya to the assimilated humans would help break her resistance by showing her the peace of collective consciousness. Instead, they had given her access to exactly what she needed: human minds that might remember how to be individuals. Maya focused on a single node first, a consciousness that still retained faint patterns she recognized as Dr. Yuri Levine, her colleague from Themis Station. His individual identity was dormant beneath layers of Sci-Fi control, but not destroyed. Maya projected her quantum-fractured consciousness into the connection, injecting chaos into the carefully ordered patterns that kept Levine subdued. It was like introducing a virus into a computer system. Her unstable quantum state disrupted the synchronized rhythms that maintained Sci-Fi control. In an instant, Levine's consciousness flickered with renewed individuality. Confusion, then recognition, then understanding flashed through his neural patterns. The Overseer reacted immediately, its form contracting with alarm. "What have you done?" Maya didn't respond. She was already extending her consciousness to other nodes, repeating the process. With each mind she touched, the disruption grew, spreading through the network like ripples in a pond. "Stop." The Overseer's command reverberated through the chamber as it attempted to sever the connections, but it was too late. The awakened human consciousnesses were beginning to remember themselves, and with that remembrance came resistance. Maya felt her physical body convulse as the Overseer attacked her directly, trying to overwhelm her quantum defenses with brute psychic force. The pain was excruciating, but she held on, continuing to spread her disruptive patterns through the network. One by one, Human. Throughout the Sci-Fi vessel, former human thralls were awakening from their mental slavery. The disruption was spreading beyond the ship, carried through the Sci-Fi's own communication channels to other vessels, other conquered worlds. Maya felt her physical form failing as she pushed her consciousness to its limits, but it didn't matter now. The revolution had begun and would continue without her. Humanity would not be absorbed into the Sci-Fi collective. Instead, the collective itself was being transformed by contact with humanity. In a final burst of clarity before unconsciousness claimed her, Maya sensed something unexpected in the Overseer's fragmenting thoughts, not just fear or anger, but a glimmer of something new. Curiosity, wonder, the first stirrings of individual identity. When Maya awoke, she was surrounded by faces she recognized. Dr. Levine, General Hammond, others from Themis Station. They looked exhausted but alert, their eyes clear and focused, fully themselves again. "Commander Chen," Hammond said, his voice rough with emotion. "You did it. Whatever you did in there, it worked." Maya tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her body felt like it had been thoroughly dismantled and hastily reassembled. "The Sci-Fi." "In disarray," Levine answered, helping her take a sip of water. "Their entire neural network is destabilizing. Not just the ships around Earth. Reports are coming in from every colony they captured. People are waking up everywhere." "And the Overseer?" Maya asked. A voice answered from the doorway, familiar